All right, today we are going to talk about the factory design pattern. But look, we're not going to treat this like some boring textbook definition. Nope, we're going to look at it as a story of how a tiny piece of code can grow up to solve some really big, really tricky problems. So let's get into it.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You start off with a simple little choice, create this object or maybe create that object. But before you know it, your code looks like a giant tangled knot of if-else statements. It's a total pain to read and an absolute nightmare to change. Well, this exact mess is why the factory pattern even exists.
So let's paint a picture with a super common scenario. You've got an employees controller in your app. The business folks come over and say, hey, permanent employees get paid one way and contract employees get paid another. So what's the fastest way to get this done? You just slap an if-else block right inside that controller. If the employee's type ID is 1, okay, they're permanent, calculate their pay. If it's 2, they're a contractor, do their logic. Ship it. Done, right? Well, not so fast. That quick fix is going to give you a long-term headache. For starters, your business logic is now practically welded to your controller. A controller's job is to handle requests, not to be a payroll calculator. And then what happens next week when they invent a temporary employee type? Yep, you've got to crack open that controller and change it again. This whole cycle just leads to a system that's fragile, a pain to maintain, and you have to retest everything every single time.
The real problem here is that our controller has way too many jobs. It's violating one of the golden rules of good code, the single responsibility principle. It should only do one thing. Right now, it's managing requests and it's building employee logic. So the clear path forward is to pull that creation logic out. Let's decouple this thing.
And that brings us to our first hero of the story, the simple factory. I want you to think of it like a dedicated specialist. Its one and only job is to take a request, in this case the employee type, and then hand back the exact object you need. And the best part? It hides all the messy construction details from the controller.
And bam, just look at the difference. That ugly, sprawling if-else block that was polluting our controller, it's gone, vanished, and it's been replaced by one single, beautiful line of code. We just ask the factory for what we need, and all that complicated logic is tucked away right where it belongs.
So how do we actually build this thing? It's really just a 3-step dance. First, you create a contract, an interface, that all your different employee managers agree to follow. Second, you build your specific manager classes, one for permanent, one for contract. And finally, step 3, you build the factory itself. That's where our original if-else logic now lives. And just like that, we're patting ourselves on the back. The logic is separated, the controller is squeaky clean, and adding a new employee type is a breeze. You only have to change the factory. It's a huge win. But you know how it is in software. The requirements never ever stand still. Is our new solution really ready for what's coming next? And right on cue, here comes the business with a bit of a plot twist. They've got 2 new, very specific rules for us. So here's the new curveball. Permanent employees, and only them, are now supposed to get a house allowance, and contract employees, and only them, get a medical allowance. You see the problem? These aren't common things. They are very specific to each employee type.
Which leads us to the big question. Is our shiny new simple factory, the one we were so proud of, actually up for this new challenge?
The answer is not really. The problem is that our factory returns that common, one-size-fits-all interface, the employee manager. We can't just add a get house allowance method to it, because what would that even mean for a contract employee? It makes no sense. And if we try to hack this logic inside the factory itself, well, it gets really messy really fast.
Okay, so our simple factory was great for level 1, but the game just got harder. We need an upgrade. We need a pattern that actually gives the control back to the subclasses. The ones that actually understand these new specific rules.
And this is where the factory method pattern makes its grand entrance. The key idea here is deferral. We're basically creating a blueprint for a factory, but we let the specialized subclasses, the permanent employee factory, the contract employee factory, make the final decision about what to create and exactly how to create it.
The original masters of this stuff, the famous Gang of 4, put it perfectly in their book. It's all about letting the subclasses decide. The power is no longer in one central place. It's distributed out to the specialists who know what they're doing.
You can really see the evolution in the structure here. With the simple factory, everything goes through one central hub. But with the factory method, we have a whole family of factories, each one a specialist, ready to handle its own unique creation logic. So what does this actually look like in code? Well, we start with an abstract base employee factory.
Then we build our concrete factories, like a permanent employee factory that inherits from it. Now that permanent employee factory isn't just responsible for creating the employee manager, it's also responsible for handling its special logic, like calculating that house allowance.
And what this gives us is just beautiful organization. The logic for permanent employees lives inside the permanent employee factory. The logic for contract employees lives inside the contract employee factory. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. No more mess.
Okay, so that brings us to the final million-dollar question. We've seen two really powerful tools. How in the world do you know which one to use? Let's just break it down nice and easy. You want to reach for a simple factory when your creation logic is pretty basic, and all you really want to do is hide a simple if-else or a switch statement. It's clean, it's simple, it gets the job done. But when the creation process itself gets complicated, when different types have their own special setup steps, like calculating those custom allowances, that's when you need the power and the flexibility of the factory method pattern.
So, I'll leave you with a little piece of homework. Go take a look at your own projects. I bet you can find a spot with some messy conditional logic for creating objects. And ask yourself, is there a simple factory just waiting to clean that up? Or maybe, just maybe, is there an even bigger, more powerful factory method waiting to be built? Thanks for watching.